just do a quick overview. Now, we already talked about this last class as far as how to do the actual grid method, but it's going to be pretty easy for you here. So what I've done is I've just loaded up a photograph here. This is one of the Tuskegee Airmen. I actually had one of my students in graphic design colorize this. So if you find any interest in using Photoshop and that, maybe think about taking graphic design. This was originally a black and white photo. So I've got this photo. I've gone ahead and laid a grid over top of it. You can kind of tell. Now for mine, it is, again, I used the ruler, right? For mine, it's about a 2-inch grid. But obviously for yours, because the photo will be much, much smaller, you'll probably be doing like, I'm going to guess like 1/2-inch grids. I will tell you this, it seems like a nuisance to do a really small grid. You feel like, if I'm just drawing lines over top of a magazine, you feel like doing a bigger grid would be easier. I can assure you, the smaller the grid, the easier it's going to be to draw. I can absolutely 100% promise you that. So I'd rather you take your time and make sure your grid is really rocking and solid, because that's going to make sure that your drawing is really, really easy. The bigger your grid, at a certain point, you might as well not even do the grid, because then at that point you're just drawing the picture, and it's going to be really, really hard for you. So, just to kind of overview, again, we've got our rulers, we've got our T-squares. Now for our practice, you probably don't need a T-square. The paper we're working with for our practice is just regular old 8.5 by 11, printer paper, or sketchbook paper. And that T-square is probably going to be a little bit too big for your actual, piece of paper there for your practice. However, whenever we introduce the next actual big project, we're going to be using very large paper, and this T-square is going to become invaluable to you. Really, really powerful tool, even though it's just 2 hunks of wood nailed together. So, literally all you do, like we mentioned before, is kind of like battleship style. You just kind of find a square to start with and kind of keep going along. Now, I've obviously drawn a larger grid over on this side, so I'm kind of zooming in on my picture. I'm going from a 2-inch grid over to a 4-inch grid. Again, yours will be different sizes. But the big name of the game is this. You want to make sure that they are squares. I can't stress that enough. If you have weird, long, like oblong, rectangle-looking things, I promise you it's going to really come crashing down and look really wonky. You want to make sure that this is a bunch of squares and this is a bunch of squares. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of start, maybe I'll start with this square right here, just because, why not? Alright, so I've got that square, I'm just going to go along, and again, we talked about this before, don't worry about spending all your time doing super crazy detail. You're going to go back through and really iron out that detail later. Now, maybe you prefer to work with just plain lines. So, okay, let's see. What I see is, looks like there's kind of a line here for like his goggles, kind of comes in, and there's a little bit more, right? And we talked about before, oops, there it is. And that's kind of it, right? That's all that's in this little tiny square that I see line-wise. Now we talked about before, the big name of the game with this is you want to go square by square. In the back of your head, you're thinking, I can make this go a lot quicker if I just draw it. I promise you, don't. It's going to come to a crashing halt and look horrible. One square at a time, you'll be way, way better off. Now, what I would suggest if you want to kind of up your game a little bit and make your life a little bit easier, instead of just doing these line drawings, also think about kind of some basic value, right? So for this individual little tiny square, I see this is actually kind of like colored in. There's some shadow here inside of his goggles, right? And there's a little bit of like a reflection right there, and this is actually kind of dark too. So a little bit of shadowing just off the bat, right? It's going to make things go by really quickly because whenever you're all done, you can go back through and your shading's already done for you, right? So you don't have to go back and do a layer after layer after layer. Just a different technique. All right. Next square over looks like, let's see, I've got a little triangle darkness right there, kind of a bright grid, bright like highlight right there in his goggles. And then really the rest of this is just, just kind of colored in, just like so. Okay, next square over. And again, if it's not totally lined up, who cares? Right, okay, color that in. Oops. This kind of comes up and down. Looks like my marker's totally janking up. I'm going to switch my markers real quick. Give this guy a try. Alright, so coming along. And again, I feel like I could keep drawing with this, but you really do not want to. You want to stick one square at a time. I promise you, it feels slow, but it's going to look so much better in the long run. Alright, next square over. So now I'm over into this square here. Next square over, I'm just drawing little tiny bits at a time. And I'm kind of adding in my shadow and my shading, right? And I'm just going to go through now. I'm going to go crazy quick just for the sake of example, but what you're going to want to do is eventually you'll get to the point where it starts to kind of formulate a general picture. Now right now this stripe that I've done doesn't really look like much of anything. That's okay, don't worry about it. So now I'm going to jump down to the next row. Wow, that's okay. I don't know what, my computer's dying. All right. So I'm going to jump down to this next row over here. So again, I'm just going to kind of slice it. Now what I see is eventually you're going to get down to squares that are incredibly difficult and challenging, right? And we talked about this last time. When you get to that point, all you need to do is find that square. Let's say it's this one right here, right? So this guy is pretty challenging. I can just slice this guy into smaller squares. And again, it feels like you're doing more work, right? But honestly, what's going to end up happening, here I'll switch my color real quick so you can see. I just divide this guy up. And what you're doing is basically you're not drawing an eyeball. You're not drawing an eyeball. What you're actually drawing is just a little bit of almost like abstraction, right? It's really like you're not drawing anything in particular, just abstraction. What happens is slowly that abstraction starts to kind of come together to the point where it starts to look like kind of an eyeball. Something like that, right? You get the idea, right? So whenever you get to that point where you're getting to a challenging square, again, just divide it up into smaller and smaller squares and eventually it will work. Now, what I'm going to do is this. If you guys are interested, if you're maybe struggling in general with this concept, what I want you to do is this. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the internet here. If you're stuck, and that's an if you're stuck, you're going to go ahead and pull up, remember that I have that YouTube page, right? I want you to go to our YouTube page. You don't have to right now. I'm just saying if you're stuck. And on our class's YouTube page, again, just to help you out, it's youtube.com/artedu101. Just going to walk you right through where you can find it. You can click on our videos. Okay? Whole bunch of different videos. I've got videos for videos for videos. I mean, over, I don't know what, 300 something? Crazy number. And down here, you're going to see introduction to grid method, drawing grid method, all that. So what I'm going to do is this, just for a second here. I'm going to go ahead and hit this one. And I'm going to let this play for a second, right? It's only 2 minutes. It's in super fast motion here. I'm going to let this play. This is the exact same thing, the exact same practice you guys are doing. I went through, grabbed a magazine, and you can see how I'm using a little tiny piece of paper to kind of block out the rest of the picture so that I can only see one single square at a time, right? And so what you get is a more complete picture. I'm going to let this play out here for a second.